Hello students. So in the last session we have discussed the topics of Unit 1. It is completed. Now we are going to enter into Unit 2. So the Unit 2 is about IoT design, and we are going to learn about wireless communication protocols. Okay. So the various topics in this unit are: first we will learn about IoT components, then we will see some of the well-known IoT architectures. Then we will see IoT design methodology. That is, when you are building a solution for IoT related problems, what are the different steps that you need to follow. Okay. Then we will see some case studies. One is about weather monitoring system, and another one is about home automation system. So this is the first part of the second unit, and the second part is about wireless protocols. So here the listed things are examples of wireless protocols we are going to look at in the second unit. We will look at 6LoWPAN, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Bluetooth Low Energy, RFID, LPWAN, 4G and 5G, that is cellular technologies, and last one is Li-Fi. Okay. So these are the various things that we are going to learn in Unit 2. So first of all, we will be starting with IoT components. Okay. So these are the different IoT components. That is, if you are looking at IoT systems, what are the different components you can see? Okay. So these are the 6 components. So we have identification technologies. We have sensing, that is, these are devices. Then we have the communication aspect, and then we have the computation that should be done on the data gathered by sensors, and then there will be different services that are provided by the IoT system, and finally there is semantics. Okay, so I will talk about semantics in the next slide. So these are the 6 IoT components. Okay, so again those 6 are represented here. So first let's talk about identification. So the identification can be divided into 2 subcomponents. One is the naming and another one is addressing. Okay. So for naming the devices, IoT devices, so these are some of the naming schemes we can use. One is EPC, Electronic Product Code, and another one is UCode. So EPC stands for Electronic Product Code. Okay, it's a naming mechanism using which you can name the devices, and all the names will be unique. Okay, and similar kind of scheme is UCode. So these 2 are alternatives for naming the devices. And next one is, so the mechanisms that we can use for addressing the devices is IPv4, or you can use IPv6. We have already discussed about the IP version 4 and IP version 6 in the previous unit, so you should know about these things. So basically, when you are using these protocols, we will get IP addresses, right? IP address, using which you can detect a particular device or identify a particular device. And next component is sensing component. So this includes sensors, actuators, and wearable devices. So We will see about sensors and actuators in the coming slides, so don't worry. We will see different types of sensors and also different types of actuators. Wearables, I already discussed about these things in the previous unit. We have already seen the examples for wearables also. So next component is communication. So what is the use of communication is, we will be having different IoT devices which will have different sensors. Those sensors will be gathering data, and that data need to be transmitted or sent somewhere, right? So that the data can be analyzed and information can be extracted from that data. So for that purpose, we need some form of communication, right? Sending and receiving the data. And the protocols we will use for communication is these things. So we can use RFID or we can use NFC. NFC means near field communication. Near field communication. Or we can use UWB. So UWB means ultra wideband. Ultra wide band. So it's something like Wi-Fi, another kind of technology that works on radio frequencies, ultra wideband, or we can use Bluetooth if the range is less, or if the devices are power constrained devices, we can use Bluetooth low energy, or we can use IEEE 802.15.4. We have seen this in the previous unit, or we can use another thing called Z-Wave, or we can use Wi-Fi. So all these things are like alternatives for communication. Okay. Then we have computation. Essentially, computation contains two subcomponents. Either it can be hardware or software. Okay, so either the hardware which helps us to perform computation, that is doing some operations on the data, or it can be in the form of software. So examples of hardware platforms, one is Arduino, another one is Raspberry Pi. So here I have included only two examples. We have seen some more examples in the previous unit, like Node MCU, Intel Galileo, we have Node MCU, Intel Galileo, and ESP8266, and all those things we can use the. So they are the examples for the hardware. And examples of software you can see here. Contiki, this is a operating system for IoT. Similarly, we have TinyOS, and we have the Amazon AWS platform, Microsoft Azure platform, and Google Cloud. Okay. And the next component is services. So some of the services provided by IoT system are, one thing can be identity related. That is, there can be a service which allows us to identify the devices. Okay, by using one of these things. Identity related. So you can think of services like functionalities. Okay, what are the different functionalities provided by or services provided by an IoT system? Okay, we can have information aggregation service, right? So aggregation means collecting together. So all the sensors in the IoT system will be gathering data or collecting data, right? So all the data must be gathered or collected at one point. Such kind of service is information aggregation. Okay. 1 minute. Okay. So another service is collaborative awareness. So these sensors which are there, can communicate with one another also, so that they work in groups, or they might work in groups and collect data together. So such kind of service is called collaborative awareness. And next one is ubiquitous services. So this service allows the IoT application to be accessed from anywhere using internet. That is ubiquitous service. Okay. And the last thing is semantics. So what is the use of semantics means? It provides something called interoperability. I already discussed what is interoperability in the first unit. So you learned this thing in the concept of characteristics of IoT, right? So one of the characteristic is interoperable communication protocols. So when I was discussing about those interoperable communication protocols, I told you what is meant by interoperability. So in IoT, we have different devices which are created by or manufactured by different vendors, right? Different companies. So each of those companies or vendors follow their own procedures or protocols for developing the devices. So what is the thing means? Let's say you have a device A and device B. Device A is manufactured by company A and device B is manufactured by company B. So device A understands, for example, HTML. So HTML is a markup language which is used to create web pages. Okay, so let's say the device A understands HTML and device B understands XML. Okay. Now, if these two devices communicate, is it feasible? How can they communicate? Because A understands only HTML and B understands only XML. They can't communicate with one another. So there should be some middleman, right? Some other format, let's say some format C. Okay. Let's say this, so this thing converts XML to some intermediate format, and then it converts that intermediate format into HTML for A. Okay, similarly, when A sends HTML, it converts that HTML into XML. Okay, so this is the intermediate technology or some service which is doing this conversion of XML to HTML and HTML to XML. So such kind of feature is called interoperability. Okay, that is making different things which understand different formats communicate with each other. That thing is called interoperability. So such kind of mechanisms are these things. Sorry, not a mechanism. Such kind of intermediate formats are these: RDF, Resource Development Framework, OWL, Web Ontology Language, and EXI, Efficient XML Interchange. Okay, I will repeat again. RDF, Resource Description Framework. Okay, Resource Description Framework. OWL, Web Ontology Language, and EXI, Efficient XML Interchange. Okay, if you still have any doubt, you can search for the abbreviations of these things in the internet. Okay. So this is about IoT components. How many of them are there? 6 IoT components: identification, sensing, communication, computation, services, and finally semantics. Okay. So now we'll be discussing about this category. Okay, sensing category, which includes sensors, actuators, and wearables. In those three things, we will be looking at sensors and actuators. So before looking at sensors, let's look at the umbrella device, which is thing. Okay, in first unit also we have learned about things, also referred to as IoT devices. Okay, so you can see here a thing always has some unique identity, and it can send and receive data, right? That is the property of a thing, properties of a thing. It will have unique identity using which we can recognize that thing, and also that thing can send and receive data. Of course, over a network. So this is the communication channel. Generally, this network will be internet. Okay. So some examples of things: smartphone, smart TV, computer, refrigerator, car, etc. Okay. And like I told you just now, these things are connected to the internet for sending information and receiving information also. Okay. And these devices also provide actuation. So in first unit, I have discussed about actuation or actuators, right? So this thing is like output. Sensing is input and activation is sort of output. Okay. So using activation, we can control physical entities or environment. The two remotely from somewhere else. Okay. You are controlling uh, any other physical devices using actuators. Okay. Right. So this is the block diagram of an IoT device. So if you break open an IoT device or open an IoT device, what are the different components you can see inside an IoT device? Okay. So you can see connectivity components, that is for sending and receiving data. You will see CPU for performing computations. Okay. If it offers video, that is, if the IoT device offers high definition video or something like that, you will have graphics component, so graphics processing unit. And if the IoT device supports audio and video, you will find these components. Okay. And IoT device will contain memory interfaces, right? It will have some form of memory, internal memory to store data. Like a computer has RAM, similarly, IoT devices will also have some form of internal memory. Okay, so and it can also support external memory. Okay, like we are having USB devices, such kind of things can also be supported by IoT devices. And every IoT device will have some form of input and output. So this is IO, input output interfaces. Okay, so these are different technologies that can be used for IO, different forms of IO. Okay, so among all these things, graphics is optional, audio video is optional. Rest of the components are mandatory or essential. Okay, for every IoT device, it should have some connectivity component for communicating the data, and it should have some processor or microcontroller for performing computations, and it should have some kind of IO interfaces, and it should have memory interface, either internal or external memory. Okay, so that is about IoT devices. And then we are going to talk about sensors. Okay, so this highlighted first point is the definition of a sensor. So sensor is basically a device which detects events or changes. So which detects events or changes. So this is sort of like input. Okay. So where is it detecting these changes in the physical environment? Okay, right? And some forms of physical phenomena are given as examples here: temperature, sound, heat, pressure, flow, that is like water flow, magnetism, motion, chemical and biochemical parameters. Okay, so it will sense those things and gives some kind of output. Okay, so don't get confused between the actuation output and this output. So this is like, so let's say this is a sensor and the two temperature sensor. Okay, so it will take the temperature from environment. Okay, and it will convert this into digital format. Okay, converts this into digital format. Let's say this is analog temperature is converted into digital temperature. Okay, so this is the output we are talking about here. But still, as a whole, this thing is considered as input only. Okay, so this digital output will be considered as input to the IoT system, right? But sensor also has some input and output. The output of a sensor will be considered as input of the IoT system. Okay, right. So you can see here most sensors take analog input and use digital, which is of an electrical output. Okay, like in the example I have shown you, this temperature sensor is taking analog temperature as input and giving it in the format of digital value. Okay, like 70, 71, like that, 70 degrees centigrade, like that. Okay, right. And sensors can be either simple or they can be smart. Okay, so simple means they will just collect the data and send the data or transmit the data to internet. Or if you take a smart sensor, they will provide additional capability. Whatever example for that additional capability is filtering duplicate data. Okay, right? And one more additional capability can be sending the data to IoT gateway when very specific conditions are met. For example, there's a temperature sensor. Let's say we can set the temperature sensor to send the data for every 1 minute. Okay, the temperature sensor should send the data to the gateway for every 1 minute. So such kind of sensor is called smart sensor. Okay, 1 minute, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, we can set that time if we want. Okay, so only when the time becomes 15 minutes from the current time, then it will send the data. Otherwise, it won't send the data. Okay, so that is the meaning of these specific conditions are met. Okay, let's move on. So this is the typical structure of a sensor. What are the different things inside a sensor? So this is sensor. Okay, so sensor can sense the environment. For example, temperature. It will read the temperature from the environment and convert that into digital format. Let's say 60 degrees centigrade, and send the digital information to IoT gateway. So this gateway can be router. Okay, right? So the components inside the sensor are sensing element which will gather the data, microcontroller which will process the data. Let's say if you the sensor can remove the duplicates, that is done by this microcontroller. So it is some form of computation, right? So that computation will be done by microcontroller. And then after cleaning the data, removing the duplicates, the transceiver component will send the data to IoT gateway. Okay. Similarly, the gateway can send the data to sensor, and okay, right. The gateway can also send some data to sensor. Let's say you want to stop the sensor or start the sensor or restart the sensor, like that. Okay. So transceiver means transmitter plus receiver. It's a combined name, transceiver. Okay, they took this part and this part, transceiver. Oh, sorry, this part also, transceiver. Okay, right. So these are the components inside the sensor. Okay, right. So now we'll be looking at different types of sensors. So how is this classification is done is based on the type of physical phenomena the sensors are sensing. Okay, so we have temperature sensors which monitor the temperature. So this is an example for temperature sensor. And we can have pressure sensors which will monitor the pressure, like air pressure, gas pressure, like that, or pressure exerted by water, like that. Okay, and example for pressure sensor, these are very small in size, right? Okay, generally these sensors will be the size of 1 inch, or most probably 2 inches, that's all. Okay, most of the sensors. We will have bigger sensors also, but most of the sensor size is either 1 inch or 2 inches, that's all. And we have flow sensors used to detect the flow inside a tube. Like you want to detect the water flow, okay, or some chemical flowing inside a tube, we will use flow sensors. And we can use level sensors. That is, if you want to detect the level of water or some other chemical inside a container, we can use level sensors. And we can have imaging sensors. These things are generally used in cameras. We can have other things also, but generally used in cameras. It will capture the image. Okay. And we can have noise sensors which will detect sound. Okay. So we have other kinds of sensors also, like air pollution sensors. So this sensor will detect gases, right? Very similar to that is this thing, gas sensors. Okay, right. We can have proximity sensors. That is whether an object is present or not. We can detect such kind of things using proximity sensors. Okay, whether a person is present at a location, yes or no. Such kind of output will be given by proximity sensors. And we can have infrared sensors. You can also call them as motion sensors. That is, you can detect the path along which the object is moving. Okay, either it is going like this or like this or like this, something like that, some path. Okay, the path along which the object is moving. Such kind of things can be detected using infrared sensors, also called motion sensors. And then we can have humidity sensors, which will detect the humidity in the environment, the moisture, and we can have speed sensors, which will detect the speed at which the object is moving. And like air pollution sensors, we can also have gas sensors. Okay, so these are some types of sensors. Okay, 1 minute, I'll come back. Okay, so let's move on. And these are sensor characteristics or properties of a sensor. So first property is data filtering. So I have discussed this in the previous slides. So data filtering means if there are some duplicate values, those things will be removed. Or if there are some erratic values, some errors are there, such kind of values will be ignored. Okay. So that is a data filtering property of a sensor. And all the sensors should consume less power. Okay, should consume less power. Why? Because the IoT sensors generally works on batteries. Okay, and if it is consuming more power, the batteries will be drained, and you have to replace batteries from time to time. Okay, now just think of forest fire detection system. What happens in forest fire detection system? The sensors are installed on the trees in a forest now, right? So every time when the batteries expire, you have to go into the forest near each tree, and you have to replace the batteries in the sensors. Okay, is it difficult or not? Right? So that's why the sensors should consume minimum amount of power. Okay, and sensors should be compact, that is less size. Size should be less, right? Lesser the size, and greater is the use, right? Always people prefer compact things or things which are having less size over big things, right? Okay, and then sensor should be smart. That is, these sensors should be uh, these sensors should be able to be managed remotely from another place. Okay, so I will, let's consider the forest fire detection example. In that case, what we are doing, we are installing the sensors on trees, and we are going away. Yes. So from another place, I can see how the sensors are working and all these things. That is, manage the sensors from a remote location. So that thing is called smart detection, right? And high sensitivity. So what is this sensitivity means? Uh, the least amount of change in output to input. The least amount of change in output to input. For example, let's say let's talk about temperature sensor. Okay, so let's say so I am repeating what is sensitivity again. The least amount of change in output to the least amount of change in input. Okay, let's say the least amount of change possible in the input is, that is, temperature is 1 degree centigrade, and for this 1 degree centigrade, let's say the output is changing by 1 millivolt. 1 millivolt. Yes. So even the output is in digital. How are the digits represented? By using electricity, right? So electricity is measured in volts, right? Voltage. So let's say for 1 degree centigrade of change in input, the least possible change in output is 1 millivolt. So this thing is called sensitivity, and the sensitivity of the sensor will be represented as 1 millivolt per 1 degree centigrade. Okay. So this is how sensitivity is represented. So by seeing this, you can understand that for 1 degree centigrade change in the input, there will be a maximum change or least amount of change, which is 1 millivolt. Okay, so that is sensitivity. Right. And next, linearity. So what is linearity means? The extent to which the measured output can change to the ideal output. So let me draw. So this is expected output, ideal output. Let's say again temperature, we are measuring the temperature. So the ideal change in the temperature should be like this, linearly. And the measured or actual temperature is something like this. Okay. So this is actual output. Actual output, or you can say measured output, which we are measuring using the sensor, and this is the expected output. We are actually expecting this output, but after measuring we are getting this one, actual output or measured output. So this thing is called linearity. Okay. Right, the maximum extent to which the actual output is linearly proportional to the expected or ideal output. So that thing is called linearity. So don't worry about all these things, just remember what is what, that's enough as a computer science student. Okay, right. And next one is dynamic range. So I think all of you know what is range, right? For example, let's say we have the values 20, 25, 30, 40, 22, 60, 50. So if you have a set of values like this, what is the range of these values? Range is 20 to 60. How did I get this? Pick the minimum value in the range and maximum value in the range. Sorry, pick the minimum value in the set of numbers and maximum value in the set of numbers. That thing is called range. So what is the dynamic range means? The range of values a sensor can measure. That is the dynamic range. Okay, the range of values a sensor can measure. For example, if you take the temperature sensor as an example, let's say it can measure from 90 degrees centigrade to 125 degrees centigrade. For example, it can only measure values from 90 to 125 degrees centigrade. And outside this range, it is not guaranteed that we will get the correct values. Okay. So while purchasing the sensor, you will get all these values on a data sheet. Okay, they will provide you the data sheet. In that, they will mention what is the range of the sensor. For example, the temperature sensor range is given as 90 degrees to 125 degrees centigrade. That means only within this range you can say the sensor is almost accurate. Okay, outside this range you can't say the sensor will be accurate. It can give wrong values also. Okay, right. So next thing is accuracy. So accuracy means maximum error that can be generated while reading the physical phenomena. Okay, maximum error that can be generated while measuring the physical phenomena. For example, the accuracy of a temperature sensor is given as 0.1%. Okay, it is given like this in the data sheet. They provided this as the accuracy, and you got a reading of, let's say, 70 degrees centigrade. Okay, and what is the 0.1 percentage of this? So 0.1 by 100, right? Okay, and that will be the maximum error that can be encountered for the temperature sensor. Okay, so this value is very less. Okay, so it is negligible, right? So that is the accuracy of a sensor. Again, I am repeating, maximum error that can be present while measuring the physical phenomena or in the output. Okay, maximum possible error that can be there in the output of a sensor. That is the accuracy. Okay, all right. And then we have hysteresis. This is a kind of error. So let's say what is this hysteresis? Let's say we have pressure sensor. Pressure sensor. Let's say I am pressing the pressure sensor. I have kept the sensor in my hand. I am pressing it. Okay, I am applying physical pressure on the sensor. So let's say right now I am pressing the sensor. Okay, I am applying force in my hand on the sensor. Okay, so the readings are something like this. The pressure sensor is giving the values like this while I am applying the pressure. And now after some time I am releasing the sensor. That means the pressure will be becoming less. And that time, let's say the output is like this. Okay, so this is while I am applying pressure, and this is while I am removing pressure. And while getting the values like this, and at some point of time, let's say after 1 second or 2 seconds, we are taking like this. And this thing is called hysteresis error. Okay, hysteresis. Okay, hysteresis. Right? So got the thing. What is hysteresis? So at the same point in time, I am getting different values when I am changing the input, right? At one time I am applying the pressure, that I am putting pressure on the sensor. At one time I am releasing the pressure, right? So that is this thing. Okay, hysteresis. And then limited noise. So every sensor, because of its mechanical properties or electrical properties, there is something called white noise. Every sensor has this. no sensor is that is, you can say this sensor doesn't have any noise problem. You can't say like that. So all the sensors are by default having some white noise problem. So noise means there will be some kind of fluctuation in the output due to environmental disturbances or something. Okay, so that thing is called noise. So a sensor should be having as less possible noise as it is. Okay, right. And next thing is bandwidth. So I am leaving this thing as an exercise. Find out what is this wide bandwidth on your own. You can search on the internet about bandwidth of a sensor. And then there is resolution. Okay. So what is the resolution of a sensor is, what should I say? The smallest that is resolution of a sensor is what is the smallest change in input the sensor can detect. Okay, what is the smallest change in input a sensor can detect? Okay, that thing is called resolution. For example, consider the temperature sensor. So let's say the sensor is able to detect the change in temperature up to 2 decimal values. Okay, so this is a very small change in the temperature, right? Or let's say 7.0005, right? This is very small change in the temperature. We can even neglect it, right? But even if the sensor is able to detect this amount of small change, that means it has very high resolution. Okay, this is very small change in the input, right? Okay. And next thing is minimum interruption. So as I previously said, it is not always easy to manage the sensors which are deployed across different areas, right? Okay, so the sensor should be operating normally in different conditions, either it is weather condition or some other condition. They should operate normally, even if the environmental or other conditions are adverse conditions. Okay, so that is this minimum interruption property. So that is basically what I can say is, even if there are some difficult conditions outside, the sensor should still operate normally. Let's say if there is some heavy rain is there, heavy rain, or otherwise fog is there, snow is falling, like that. Even if there are some adverse conditions, the sensor should operate normally. That is this minimum interruption. And sensor should provide high reliability. So this is somewhat linked to this high reliability. That is, and also related to this accuracy. So the output given by the sensor should be reliable. Least amount of error is expected. Okay. And finally, all these sensors should be easy to use. Otherwise, no one will use it. If it is some big, if the sensor is big, otherwise it consumes more power and all these things, no one will use those sensors. Okay. So these are the different characteristics of a sensor. Data filtering, minimum power consumption, compact, smart detection, high sensitivity, linearity, dynamic range, accuracy, hysteresis, limited noise, wide bandwidth, high resolution, minimum interruption, high reliability, and ease of use. Okay. Let's move on. So That is about sensors. Now we are going to look at actuators. So I already told you this is an output component if you look at an IoT system. So again, the highlighted first point is the definition of an actuator. So it is a kind of motor which is responsible for controlling or taking action in a system. So this is the thing I am talking about. This is the output function. Okay. So let's say there is a water tank on the top of your house. Water tank. Okay. And you have an IoT system installed on this water tank which will measure the level of the water tank. Okay. So the sensor, let's say you are using the level sensor which you have seen in the previous slides. So when the tank is filled with water, the level sensor will detect. It will send the data to the gateway. Gateway will send to the internet where the values are stored in a database. Okay. So the IoT application will analyze the data in the database, and if it is filled, don't worry about how it is going to detect all these things. Just assume this example and ignore all the complex details. So based on analysis, it is finding that the water tank is filled. Okay, now it will send. Let's say it has to stop the motor. Yes, motor which is pumping the water into the water tank. Okay, that signal will be sent from the internet. It will reach the gateway. From the gateway, it will come to the actuator, not the sensor. There will be another component called actuator. Let's say there is some kind of switch or something, or a lever kind of thing, or switch kind of thing. So this actuator will receive the signal from the gateway and it will turn off the lever or switch. Okay, that is this controlling part. Okay, or taking action on the system. Here the system we are talking is water tank. Okay, so that is the thing. So the input in this case is given by the level sensor and the output is being done by the actuator. Okay, right. So you can see here, actuator will take a source of data or energy and converts that energy to motion, which will control the system. Okay, so the energy can be either water pressure, okay, or mechanical energy, electrical energy. We have different kinds of energy, so it can be anything. Okay, right. So you can see here actuators use the analyzed data which is collected by sensors. Just now I have told you, right? Okay. Using this analyzed data, the IoT system will send back the signal to the actuator what to do. Okay. And another example is given here. I have put it here as the last point. You can see here. So here we are measuring the gas flow. Okay. And so, right, when the measured pressure is below a certain threshold value, which is sensed by the sensor, we will shut down the gas flow. Okay, and this shutting down the gas flow is done by the actuator. Okay, and the measuring of the pressure is done by the sensor. Right, this is the input. Based on these input values, the system will take the decision of what to do, and that what to do decision will be sent to the actuator, and the actuator will do the corresponding action. Okay, right. So like we have seen types of sensors, we will also look at types of actuators. We have electrical actuators, mechanical actuators, hydraulic actuators, pneumatic actuators, and manual actuators. So below each type of actuator, you can see the examples. Okay. So these are only generic examples. Okay. And the shape and size of the actuators can be different. Don't think only the electrical actuator will always look like this. Okay. There are electrical actuators which look differently also. So I only put some generic examples. Correct? Okay. So what is an electrical actuator? Which converts electrical energy to mechanical torque. So mechanical torque means some motion, mechanical motion, either rotatory motion, linear motion, or whatever, oscillatory motion. Okay, some movement is there. And mechanical actuators, this converts mechanical rotatory motion to again mechanical linear motion. Okay, so the rotatory motion, let's say some gear wheel is rotating, that will be the input, and the output will be linear motion. Let's say this rod is moving front. Okay, this is linear linear motion, right? Okay. And then we have hydraulic actuators, which converts hydraulic power, either power generated by water or some kind of fluid, into mechanical motion. Okay, rotating some rod, rotating some wheel, some kind of thing, some kind of mechanical motion. And these two are almost same. So the different thing is the input is different, that's all. So in hydraulic actuators, the input is hydraulic power, that is generated by fluid, liquid. But here the input is gaseous energy. Okay, gas energy. But the output is a mechanical motion. And finally, manual actuators. So all these things are automatic. That means no need to go near them and operate them. Based on the input energy, it will automatically give the corresponding output energy. But here in the manual actuators, a person must go to the actuator and operate it. It's not automatic. So you can see here, converts physical energy. Whose energy is this? A person's energy. And the output is mechanical motion. So someone must go and rotate this wheel. Okay, then only something will happen, some motion or whatever. So these are manual actuators. So that's it for this session. Let's review whatever we have learned in this session. So we started unit 2 and we have seen what are the different topics that will be covered in this session. We have seen different topics that are going to be covered in unit 2, and we have started off with first topic, IoT components. 6 components: identification, sensing, communication, computation, services, and semantics. Then we have seen IoT devices, which are also called things, block diagram of the thing or IoT device. Then we have seen about sensors, the definition of a sensor, structure of a sensor or components of a sensor. Then we have seen types of sensors, and then we have seen sensor characteristics, and then we have seen actuators, the definition of an actuator, what does it do, and finally we have discussed about types of actuators. So with this, I end the session. Thank you.